Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, and we're going to just jump straight into things today because why waste the time if we don't have to? So we're going to start out with the Cybertruck has been spotted doing some winter testing in camo. So this is the color of camo that they've been using to test the Cybertruck actually quite a bit. But the most interesting thing to come out of these winter testing images, videos, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I don't think this video even shows too much here, other than they're clearly opening the frunk, which is the most interesting part for me, at least. Because as we can see here, the frunk actually looks pretty similar to what the F-150 has for a trunk, which is great to see. I mean, this thing looks quite spacious, and I am glad and all in on that. Because the more room you have to store things in a truck, whether it's inside, outside, whatever, is great. Also, it'd be sweet to see a color like this come to life and be like an actual Cybertruck paint job you could get. I don't know how many people would get it, but I would be all in on that. That'd be sick to have. And with that, multiple Tesla Cybertrucks have been spotted without that camo. Now, these are probably trucks actually getting made and tested in other places, but then these might be trucks that are actually going to go to consumers at some point. So, it'd be great to see these trucks actually making their way places. I can see a video of a couple of them loaded up here on what is just straight up a diesel truck. It'd be funny to see a Cybertruck pulling other Cybertrucks, but not quite what we're going to see here. But yeah, pretty sweet to see these things out in person getting tested. And yeah, this person claims this looked heavily tested. In my opinion here, I guess the windows are smashed. So yes, maybe it was heavily tested, or they look smashed. I think they are. I think those are smashed windows. So, yes, it was heavily tested. Who knows if they were rolling it, throwing rocks at it, throwing metal balls at the window and actually getting them through. But yeah, seeing these these camel colored ones are sweet to be seeing. And hopefully that's a color you can get one day, or it's up to like anyone who reserved can get that color. That'd be sweet. It'd be just cool to see that. Next up, we have Mclaren's Applied Science Division has built a fancy e-scooter. Now, every once in a while, these exotic car makers, your McLarens, your Lamborghinis, your high-end fancy cars that people like to think of, release something that's just not a car. So this thing folds up extremely compact and has this cool light bar here, this weird Iron Man triangle light bar here, and looks pretty cool. It looks like you can, like the kickstand is just being able to like pull the thing back, maybe? I don't really know. But the books have been opened for the Lavoie. I have no idea how you say that. It's spelled Lavoie. Series 1. It's an electric scooter designed by McLaren, basically. So this high-performance foldable scooter is pretty sweet. The standard details for 1,890 euros. That's probably, it's basically like between 1,500 and $2,000 American. It doesn't really matter. But has a capacity of 468 watt hours, giving roughly 25 miles of range based on an average speed of 12 miles per hour. I'm guessing it may cook a little bit faster than that, but that's about all you're going to get. Now, the battery is waterproof, hard shell, compliant with strict e-scooter safety standards on both sides of the Atlantic. It charges from 0 to 100% in less than 3 hours. There's an eco mode. It's basically a fancy electric scooter like you would expect from a company like McLaren. So that is what that is. And it's, again, these companies always make weird, like, one-off products like this. It does look pretty sweet, and I'm guessing it works pretty good, but I'm guessing it's got to go a little bit faster because it's from McLaren, right? It does a little more than 12 miles an hour. The colors look cool. I actually like the design. This like weird thing that's going on by the front wheel looks kind of cool with it. Brake lights in the back, lights in the front. I mean, it's just a cool looking thing. And who would expect less from a company like McLaren? Now, next up we have MyQ, which is the Chamberlain like smart garage system. Will be discontinuing its Google Assistant support for the garage door openers because it wasn't, and I quote, user-friendly. Well, let me tell you whose fault that is, because I tried to set this up at one point, and it absolutely was a pain in the ass, and I don't think they ever did anything about it. And the proof behind that is they're getting rid of it. Now, most assistants that, or most other garage doors that can use the Google Assistant, it's simply a, hey, close the garage door. So the garage door closes. With the MyQ system, you had to say, hey, ask MyQ to close the garage door. Boom. So for one, was that super non-intuitive to do? And why would I have to ask MyQ to do it? I mean, that is one of the biggest setbacks, is even if you've got it to the point of being set up, which, to be honest, with the MyQ system kind of sucked to do anyways. The prompt phrase to get it to happen sucked. Like, ask MyQ to close the garage door. I'm not going to remember that. I'm going to go to ask the assistant to do something, and I'm going to be like, hey, close the garage door. And it should just do it. It shouldn't be this complicated disaster of which they have determined to make it here. And they recognized that and also didn't, it was not their fault. It just wasn't a user-friendly experience. So due to customer feedback, we've determined that our current Google Assistant integration feature is not a user-friendly experience. Crazy. And for the time being, we have discontinued the feature for new MyQ users until we have determined a better integration solution, which all they needed to change was the prompt phase for it. The prompt phrase for it needed to be changed, and then they just needed to make the setup like every other garage door opener. Those two things solved, done. Don't have to worry about it. And customers have indeed complained for years about this integration, and if you didn't believe so, the Google Assistant action has a 1.3 star review after over 1,200 reviews. So it's good that Chamberlain acknowledged the situation, and somehow they acknowledged it very incorrectly, which is, I don't know how, but you managed to do it. But I guess you're taking customer feedback, so unfortunately, with how the world works, you can only complain so much if a company's at least trying to listen, even if you listened incorrectly. NIkola, the electric car manufacturer, is suspecting foul play in a fire that burned multiple trucks at its global headquarters. Whatever that means. But basically, NIkola, the electric car truck manufacturer, on Friday reported a fire around its global headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona. 5 electric trucks were burnt in the accident. The company confirmed, though no injuries were reported. The company took to Twitter to announce that it suspects foul play in what was involved starting the fire. Now, I just want to put this out there, and hopefully I'm remembering all this correctly, but I remember years ago you see all these things about NIkola CEO. It's a phantom truck. It doesn't actually work. It's the hard shell only. It doesn't have an actual powertrain that works. The range is only like 30 miles on this giant truck. It's horrible. Blah, 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 blah. To be honest, I kind of stopped following them because almost all the press was so negative towards either their founder or just their product in general that it was kind of like, what's the point? Also, they've been in business, I believe, for a long time, and they just don't have an actual product out there. And that's just, I don't know. What are you supposed to do? Like, let's see here. Voting is still open. I don't even know what they're trying to get you to vote on. Oh, so their electric vehicle is available now? Okay. Well, that's new. Okay. So maybe all that stuff's gone now. Maybe they have real trucks going on. Or hopefully I'm not conflating the wrong company here. But apparently their trucks have a 330-mile range with a 90-minute charge time. And, well, that's not awesome. It's not horrible. I mean, the trucks don't look too bad either, assuming they actually do what they say they're going to do. And again, maybe all my information was bad, so don't come after me. That was just a memory I have from a long time ago. I could definitely be wrong. But anyways, they tweeted out early this morning, behind our Phoenix headquarters, a fire occurred, which affected multiple battery electric trucks. No one has been injured. Foul play is suspected, as a vehicle was seen in the area of the affected trucks just prior to the incident. And an investigation is underway. Our team applauds the Phoenix and Tempe fire departments for taking quick action and staying on top of the situation. They'll release more information as it becomes available. Now, this was a few days ago, so let's see here if maybe there is some more availability here. Also, that's a good point. Nikola for a while was on the hydrogen train. I just think hydrogen's never going to take off. There's no infrastructure behind it already. And as there's not enough infrastructure behind hydrogen, but there's also like there's electricity everywhere. All you have to do is put the chargers in. It's just hydrogen's just not really gonna take off, in my opinion. Maybe in big trucks it will because it's gonna take so much longer to do so. But it looks like they actually have a product now. So maybe I was making things up. Hopefully not, but maybe I was. And they tweet out a ton, and who knows? I can't find what I'm looking for. So we're just going to pretend and move on. Now, a spokesperson from NIkola confirmed the language in the tweet is speaking with Autumn News about the fire. Once the situation is further assessed, we'll have more information. I don't know if it was foul play. I kind of think Ford had cars going up in flames in their parking lot because of battery issues. Maybe it happened here. Who really knows? But NIkola suspects foul play, and apparently they have a real truck now, which I didn't know about. Next up here, this is just an interesting article I kind of found that I thought would be interesting to take a look at. I actually haven't looked at the actual information yet, but from A to Ultra, how does the M2 Max and M2 Ultra stack up versus every other Apple chip? This includes the iPhone, the iPad, the Mac, to see what's going on. Because if you didn't know, the Mac Studio is basically the highest end one unless you want faster storage on some PCIe slots, in which case you would get the Mac Studio or Mac Pro for the extra 3K or whatever it is. Insane, but I guess some people want it. So let's just check out some scores here and see what's going on. I'm suspecting none of this is going to be that insane to see here. It'd be interesting if they did have a couple of Intel Macs in here just to see where they stack up, because I do wonder if the M1 is scoring here, and those at the time were a pretty big jump over the Intel versions, if the iPhone 14 Pro would have beat out a couple of them. But everything basically lines up pretty much where you'd expect. The M2 Max actually comes in a little bit lower than you would expect, I guess, compared to the M1. Never mind, the M1 Ultra has more cores, so why? Basically, all this graph is going to tell you here is the more cores it has, the better it's going to do. And as you would also suspect, the A16 Bionic chips are going to do better as well, depending on what you're looking at here. And the same story pretty much here across the board. The more cores, the better things got, even for single core performance. Compute performance, let's see what we get here. Is it the same lineup? It's going to be dang close. We have a little more changing blows, maybe not. Never mind. It's pretty much the same lineup across the board. Not very interesting, actually. But it does at least show you that you're at least getting the bang for the buck, at least out of most of it. Does kind of tell you, though, here that if you did have an M1 chip before, that it probably wasn't worth going to M2. But I think most reviewers said that anyways, so it shouldn't be that shocking. Lastly here, Meta will not negotiate with publishers and will end Facebook news in Canada. So Canada passed a law basically saying if you are using news articles from other sites, you need to negotiate content deals with those publishers for links shared on your platform. So if you're on Twitter and you're like, this article was sweet, look at this, my following people, and you sent that out, Twitter would have to pay whatever place you got that article from for that article to be shared on the platform, which is kind of interesting. But so Facebook's take was just, we're not figuring that out. I don't even think this is necessarily, I'm sure a little bit of it is about the money. I'm not saying it's like completely not about the money, but I think the biggest thing here is imagine all the news sources out there that get put on Twitter every day or put on Facebook or Instagram. And now you got to go through and you got to go to all of those companies and be like, how much do you want per share of article? And then you have to agree on it based off what Meta's making off of whatever that tweet made, basically. So just I think the News Act itself it's got a good thought behind it, but the actual execution of it is an absolute disaster. So, as Meta threatened in March, it promptly announced yesterday it would be quickly ending its news access on Facebook and Instagram in response to the new law. Again, I wouldn't be that shocked by this. It makes sense to me. According to the New York Times, it's still unclear when Canada's law will take effect, but Meta's statement makes it sound like Meta plans to cut off the news as quickly as they can. probably so they never have to deal with it or lawsuits because of it. Meta claims that the news has no value to either the tech giant or to its users who do not go on Meta claims that the news has no value to either the tech giant or users who do not go on Facebook and Instagram to consume news. To be honest, I don't go on many of those platforms to consume actual news from like publishers. So they're probably not wrong here, and it's probably super not worth it. So why wouldn't you just cut it off in that country? It'll be interesting if this goes to other countries, though. If laws like this start to go into effect in the US, in the EU, things like that, then it might be interesting to see how Meta handles it then. But until then, Meta/Facebook and Instagram are kind of in a FU moment here. Canada's law was modeled after an Australian law passed in 2021 that requires companies like Meta and Google to negotiate deals with news publishers to linked content. When Australia passed its law, Meta similarly protested by ending its news protested to end its news access, basically, before they reached an agreement, securing amendments to Australia's law and striking content deals with several news publishers. It is possible that Meta would do this here as well if the opportunity presents itself. But both Meta and Google have met with the Canadian government over this week, and the government spokesperson said that Canada looks forward to having more talks with the tech companies, which is just what you would say if you were the spokesperson. You would just put that out there because that's what's supposed to do. Now, it'd be interesting to see how this plays out over the long term, especially with the things like AI coming into effect now, where we're going to see publishers and even just everything on the internet need to be figured out. How do we compensate them for all the scraping these AI things have done on the internet to create these models? So lots of things are going to change and happen here. I'd be shocked if they don't reach another agreement here, because I'm guessing Canada's going to realize how much money Meta brings in to the Canadian government, and money's involved. Everything gets a little skiffy. So with that, thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast, or watching if that's what you like to do. And with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. See ya.